You hear young people say, especially young women more than young men, he's not ready to commit. That's a phrase, right? We hear it all the time, he's not ready to commit, which is another way of saying not ready to decide. I like to point out to young people that the word decide is an interesting word. It comes from the Latin decidere, which means to cut off. And if you think about it, that has all kinds of ramifications. You're going along a certain path and you come to a place where the road goes this way and it goes that way, and you have to make a decision. And when you decide to go that way, you've cut off the possibility of going the other way. And decision is, of course, absolutely essential to living a full human life. I mean, there are so many people with regard to marriage and the important familial relations of their life, but with regard to a lot of other things, who are indecisive and who are fearful, basically. I mean, why will we not decide? Because we're afraid that we're going to make the wrong decision. And of course, we may. We have no guarantee that all our decisions will be, in retrospect, the right decision. But we must decide in the courage of our uncertainties. You don't ask for certainty and every guarantee and every T crossed and every I dotted and, a signed warranty. Nonsense. That's not, if you're looking for that, whether with regard to marriage or vocation or anything else of importance in life, you're going to live a stifled, withered, shrunken little life in a shell of fearfulness. To have the courage to decide. Certainly, I mean, hear the invitation of John Paul II, of John Paul the Great to young people, was so powerfully effective, and you saw it again and again in World Youth Days and in many, many other contexts. And, what was the thematic, really, of his whole pontificate, not just with the young people, and not just with Catholics, but with the whole world? Well, the theme was set in that very first homily in October 16, 1978, after he'd been elected Pope. And he said, to the Church, to the world, to the young, to the old, be not afraid. Be not afraid. Be not afraid to decide. Ultimately, we're not in control of our lives. We're responsible for those aspects of our lives that we can, in a modest way, control. But life is an adventure. Life is risk. Another word for risk is faith. It's believing that we really are in the hands of God, and that there's nothing that we're going to do, there's no mistake we're going to make that is so great that is going to change the fact that we will be abidingly and eternally, beginning with eternal life now, in the hands of God. So to have the courage to decide, and the sense of life as adventure, and the Church's invitation to follow Christ. I mean, obviously, when Jesus said to the disciples, come follow me, they had no idea what they were getting into, and it's one of the, as many people have pointed out, one of the strongest arguments for the truth of the New Testament, of the biblical account of the founding of the Church, is that it depicts with such embarrassing candor how dumb the disciples frequently were, and what a hard time they had figuring out what it meant to follow him, including following him to the cross, and through the cross to resurrection glory. So to decide, to know that you're cutting off, and in human relations and in marriage, it's very important to know how definitive this is. Pope Benedict said just recently in a homily, I forget what the occasion was, But I was struck by the phrase. He says to enter into marriage is to shut the door to divorce. It's a nice way. Again, to decide is to cut off. There's simply certain things that are no longer in play. They're no longer on the horizon. And this, you see, is very difficult because when you're young, I need not tell you, we all know this from our own life experience and our experience with young people today, is that there is this amazing sense of the world being open and of the possibility of entertaining almost infinite possibilities. I might do this, I might do that, I might do the other thing, I'll do, and it's like a little kid. You ask a little 8-year-old kid, what are you going to do? And she'll say, well, I'm going to be an astronaut, and then I'm going to be a doctor, and then I'll be a movie star. And, well, it's a fantasy world that for 7- and 8-year-old children is amusing and entertaining, and we all chuckle a little bit. But when somebody's 18 and 25 and 30, and they're still living in that world of, I don't need to decide, I don't need to commit, I'll get around to it. Or they're expecting some kind of lightning clap from heaven, in which God is going to say, boom, this is the right person, and that's the way you ought to do it. No, God calls us to live in faith. We walk, as St. Paul says, not by sight, but by faith. And the word constantly coming to us through the ministry of the church is nothing less than the voice of Jesus Christ. Be not afraid.